Hey everybody, I'm John, and the American Tifosi are experiencing some logistical challenges this week, and sadly, I will not be joined by Natalie. Instead, I'm being joined by fellow American Tifosi member Miranda. There she is.
Hi-
Miranda, what
Hello.
makes you part of the American Tifosi?
Well, I'm a Ferrari fangirl.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's your. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've grown to love F1 over the last 4 or 5 years. Got into it because of Drive to Survive, and I enjoy the fast pace and, as I've heard Natalie say, all the drama on the track and off the track.
Awesome. So you'll fit right in here then. Do you have a favorite team outside of Ferrari or favorite driver that maybe isn't in Ferrari, drive for Ferrari?
Um, I really enjoy Williams. And then McLaren, I've always really liked Oscar. He's been doing great.
Okay, Oscar, huh? Okay. Well, so that's what we're here to talk about is the Miami Grand Prix review. So, you watched the race
I did. Yeah,
and the sprint and the how much
I
did you
did.
nerd out?
Well, I didn't actually watch qualifying. I followed along on my phone. I was actually in the grocery store parking lot, like on
Okay.
the F1 app.
Okay.
So I followed along, but I didn't watch. And I did watch the sprint race and I watched the Grand Prix.
Okay. So from the Miami Grand Prix weekend, what would you say is your lasting memory?
Mm, Definitely Lewis Hamilton's grumpiness or his attitude. He got a little snarky there. That one will go down in the books, I think.
I mean, you talking about during the during the race when he said, "Would you like me to let Carlos by?"
Yes, and when he said something about like taking a tea break while you're at it.
Okay. I don't disagree. I mean, that could be considered a lasting memory. I'd like to unpack that a little bit. I have my own thoughts and feelings on that. Um, so for our viewers, we do make some notes, and I have some notes from Natalie since she was unable to join us this time, and we'll try and include them. But this will be a fun way to include maybe another point of view. Um, Anything that you feel like needs unpacking from practice or sprint quali? I've got a couple of things I'd like to talk about, but I'll let you go first if there's something you want.
I mean, not so much from sprint quali, just like the rain situation during the sprint and that making it a little bit crazy.
Yeah, yeah, the rain made it a challenge. On a sprint weekend, there's only one chance to practice, and so something that I thought was kind of notable is how fast the Mercedes looked, and that proved to be true as the weekend went along because Kimi, qualified first for the sprint. Um, it proved to be a little bit fool's gold because if I'm not mistaken, I think Charles was the second fastest during FP1, which turns you might as well just call it FP only since it was the only practice session.
Fair.
But during the sprint qualification, there are a couple things that it kind of bugs me. We talked about this. Natalie and I talked about this last week, where um, Liam Lawson got a 10-second penalty for the same thing that Max got a 5-second penalty for. And do you remember that, or are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this sprint quali, Max didn't get a penalty. He impeded Lance. Well, first of all, he screwed Yuki Tsunoda. Period. Just straight up screwed him.
Absolutely.
Um, I don't believe that that was malicious, but that is not supposed to be in the rule books, or that is not in the rule books for consideration for a penalty or not. Like if my bad, I crashed you. Oh, since you're sorry, you
You're right.
shouldn't get a penalty. So he screwed Yuki, and Yuki wasn't able to get out, and he also screwed Lance Stroll, which damn you F1 for making me defend Lance Stroll. Um, but Lance Stroll was on a flying lap, which means he was like trying to qualify, and Max was on the driving line on a cool down lap, and then Lance Stroll had a break, went off into the dirt, and had to get back on the line. Of course, he lost his time. Where is Where's the penalty for that?
Well, he's
Thoughts?
Max.
Yeah, I
I
just
mean,
don't
that's
like. I just don't like the inconsistency. Um, it, it, it there is a, and we're going to talk about this more as this episode goes on, but for since you have been a fan, and for the most part of me being a fan, there's been five teams and there's been five other teams. Many media outlets call it Formula A and Formula B. Um, and that this is part of the reason. Like Formula A gets away with shit stuff, and Formula B gets called out for it, and that's been proven so far through the first. And we've only talked about the sprint, but the first five races,
yeah,
and that bothers me.
only five teams mopped up all the points this race for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that some more. But now we can move on to the sprint. Um, we would not be doing justice if we didn't say kudos to Kimi Antonelli. He
For
qualified.
sure.
Yeah. Qualified first for the sprint, youngest driver to ever qualify first for a race, beating Sebastian Vettel. Now, when I was a fan, Sebastian Vettel was at the very tail end of his career and presumably had a 20-ish year career. So that means this record is something like 25 years old.
Right.
Um, so, congrats to Kimmy. Sadly, he didn't hold the lead.
Uh, after you guys put out your video last week, I was like, oh, nobody put Kimmy on the podium for the Grand Prix. And then when he actually yeah, was on the pole for the sprint, I was like, oh my gosh, she has a chance. And then the Grand Prix also, oh my gosh, she has a chance. But
Yeah. And I
sad.
thought my bold prediction was Kimmy outscores George, and I was like, man, this is. You might as well just give me my point right now, because there's no way he's not going to outscore George. Which sadly, spoiler alert, George outscored him. Um, but there was crazy rain, such bad rain that Charles couldn't manage to even keep it on the road during the formation lap. Um,
That was heartbreaking.
the telecast, at least the recording that I watched, didn't do a good job of illustrating what happened until 3 or 4 laps into the sprint. But they didn't even show. They just said, oh, there's only 19 cars on the grid. It's
Yeah.
like, what happened to Charles? And it ended up benefiting Lewis. Lewis ended up getting a couple points. There was a bunch of penalties. Let's see, Albon, Lawson, Verstappen all got penalties. And by the time it was adjudicated several hours later, that pushed Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, and Lance Stroll into the points. Now I'm super happy for Yuki Tsunoda. I want him to get points. I want him to keep a seat at Red Bull, though I'm not naive enough to think that that will happen. Um, I'm upset that Lance Stroll again got points because if you were to look at the number of points that Lance Stroll has and compare it to the number of points that Aston Martin has, you would find that those numbers are the same.
Yes.
Which means Fernando Alonso, the vastly superior driver,
Yeah.
doesn't have any points.
It's crazy.
And Lawson is the one that wrecked him. Lawson wrecked him like just full on full send. Just I'm gonna wreck you. And um, if you remember back to was it last year? Yeah, last year, on Drive to Survive, Liam Lawson kind of burned a lot of bridges. He burned them with Checo and he burned them with Fernando. So I
Yeah.
my crazy prediction for next race, which is at Imola in 2 weeks, is that Fernando is going to, at the very least, have something to do with the downfall of Liam Lawson. And it might only be a radio call or something like that. But
Okay.
what say you?
I mean, Fernando Alonso, obviously vastly more experienced, right? And I am just really surprised at how that's shaken out in general.
Yeah. Um, look, I've made it no secret. I don't like Lance Stroll. I don't believe he belongs on the grid, and his dad doesn't need any evidence. He's got all the evidence, but I mean, blood's thicker than water, so he's gonna do what he wants to do. But it's just like I would like to continue seeing Fernando racing for as long as he would like to race. Fernando Alonso made a very funny tweet on Snap Facebook chat um, to Max Verstappen when Max Verstappen had his baby this weekend. And like he was poking fun at himself and said, I'd look forward to racing your daughter soon. Like he's the angel's wonder. And as long as he wants to stay on the grid, in my brain, he's got all the agency to do that if that's what he wants to do. So
Yeah, agreed.
yeah. So the sprint, there was a bunch of weather as you mentioned. You and I have talked about this kind of offline, and people smarter than me especially have said like the sprint ended under a yellow flag or a
Hmm.
safety car, right? Safety car in F1 terms. Um, if the sprint would have not ended under a safety car, I think it would have been a really interesting finish because Lando won, but it's a safety car, so he was able to just kind of coast on in. But it was setting up to be a pretty exciting finish. What do you think about it ending under a safety car?
I think Lando needed that and loved it. I mean, I don't know that he needed it, but like that's, yeah, been his thing, right? Especially in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar Piastri made a joke about it. He said, like, I'm never buying a lotto ticket in Miami because he's always going to get shafted and Leno's always going to turn out lucky. I, yeah, I'm sad because it would have been fun to see what Oscar could have done. It would have been fun to see if Kimmy could have, you know, annexed some of the demons that he got passed by everybody on lap one. It would have been fun to see Lewis. Lewis finish third? Third? Yeah, Lewis finished third, right? So like it would have been, and he was on fresher tires. It would have been fun to see if he could have gotten caught. And then as
Yeah.
we talk about this race, I'm going to have some scathing remarks about Lando Norris. So remember this moment, bookmark this moment. So then we move on to the race, and we've got qualifying. Um, our team, Ferrari did not look good.
No, no, they did not. Uh, both Williams were ahead of them. Yes.
Yeah, that's so Natalie's a huge Carlos Sainz fan. Um, and if you were in if she was where you are right now, I would ask her the question, how do you feel about Carlos qualifying above both your Ferrari drivers, specifically Charles? So I'll ask the same question to you.
I'm sad that it was above Charles. It would have made me happier had it been Charles Carlos than Lewis, right? Like Williams is my second favorite team. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of happy that it happened. Not at Ferrari's expense, but hey, Williams is coming up. So
Yeah,
we just talked about Formula A and Formula B and the top five teams and the bottom five teams. And the top five teams for as long as I've been a fan have been Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, Aston Martin, and McLaren. Aston Martin is not in that picture anymore.
yeah, it's Williams.
Yep, and until last race, you could have argued that it was Haas, but I
Mm,
would venture to guess to say that the experts are saying that it's Formula A is four teams and Formula B is now six teams. So what I would like to see is Williams just be considered Formula A.
yeah, I would argue that they are over Haas. If we had to make it 5 and 5, definitely it's Williams.
Sure, but that would be. very, very short-sighted because I mean, they were ninth last year.
Okay.
So there's no evidence that says that they should be that way as it stands right now. They're in fifth place. So yes, of course. If it were 5-5, then yes, Williams is in that conversation. But I don't know that they're going to stay there. I would love for them to stay there, and I would love for them to be a part of Formula A. So for that reason, and it was also I like Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz famously got fired by Ferrari, not for anything he did. Lewis Hamilton knocked on Ferrari's door and said, "I'd like to join you." If 7 times/8 time, if you count it, world champion Lewis Hamilton knocks on your door and says, "I want to be a part of your team," you say yes.
Yes.
And the casualty of that, of course, was Carlos Sainz. So Carlos Sainz very famously kind of waited and then chose Williams, and Alpine was sad, Sauber was sad, Red Bull might have taken a run at him too. We don't know. Um,
Mhm.
he could have been on any one of those teams, and somehow he chose Williams. So I loved the poetic justice of Carlos Sainz saying, "Hey fools, I'm right here, and I'm ahead of you
Yeah, that's fair.
in a
I don't
quote
know.
inferior car."
Yeah, I also just have a love of like Williams' history again from the Drive to Survive series and watching the growth of the team. And yeah,
Yeah, Williams was a powerhouse in the 80s and 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. They were a power, and I mean, you know me, I love supporting small business, and that's what Williams is. Williams is small
right.
business in the worlds of Ferraris. Like then there's that awesome documentary about Benetton and an awesome documentary about Braun. Like those are
Yeah,
the teams that I want to see win. So qualification, Ferrari didn't look great. Both Williams, we already mentioned, were ahead of the Ferraris. Max, Max, Max qualifies first
oh my.
again.
Hmm.
Um, Lando qualified second. Who was third? Kimmy was third.
Kimmy
Um,
was third, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's got a
yeah,
shot.
and Oscar was fourth. So I had text Natalie after the qualification results and said, "This is a great opportunity for Lando Norris. Um, Lando Norris needs to get a win over Max, not necessarily beat him in the race, but every single time Max and Lando get together, Max always gets the best of him.
Right,
And in this race, sure, Lando Norris passed Max Verstappen. It took him 3 or 4 more laps than Oscar Piastri. It took Oscar Piastri to pass Max. And you remember last year when Max got the double penalties for forcing him off the road. It took Lando half the race to pass Max Verstappen.
right.
He needs a win.
Yeah,
The analogy that I want to make for viewers that maybe aren't huge fans of Formula One is the Red Sox and the Yankees. The Red Sox and Yankees had this long, storied rivalry in baseball, but the Yankees refused to call it a rivalry because the Yankees had 27 World Series to the Red Sox 0. And it's like the Yankees like you can't beat us. It's not a rivalry. And that's how I feel about Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Is Lando cannot beat Max, even though he has a better car.
except maybe now he can.
He has a better car and he finished ahead of Max. But guess what? Max still qualified first. And there's no and it's a little bit apples and oranges because yes, Lando's ahead of him in the championship, but he's got a vastly superior car. If Max Verstappen were driving Lando's car, is there any doubt that Max Verstappen would be leading the championship by leagues and bounds, leaps and bounds?
I think it's leaps. Um, my argument to that is Max isn't used to the way their car is set up. Like Lewis is struggling with Ferrari this year, and part of that is learning a new car.
Yeah. No, it hasn't affected Carlos Sainz very much.
Fair.
Hasn't affected Yuki, which
Touche.
brings me to my next point that I want to talk. I'm not a huge fan of Red Bull. I'm not a huge fan of Max Verstappen. I'm a pretty big fan of Yuki Tsunoda. These are all the three figureheads of Red Bull, and then there's Helmut Marko, which no one's a fan of. Yuki Tsunoda kind of famously has not got a shot with Red Bull when people thought he should, and most people believe it's because the team principal Christian Horner uh, doesn't like Yuki Tsunoda. Now, I want to take you back to last year. Last year, the second driver for Red Bull was Checo. The year before, it was Daniel Ricciardo in Checo. Or no, sorry, no. The year before it was Checo. Before that, it was. The point is, they've gone through so many second drivers, and Yuki had never got a shot. But Christian Horner, the principal, has always defended the second driver all the way till the last moment. Oh, Checo's getting better. Oh, Pierre Gasly's getting better. Oh, Alex Albon's getting better. Daniel Ricciardo's doing just fine. Liam Lawson, we like what he's doing. No Formula One Red Bull driver not named Max Verstappen has qualified in the top 10 three races in a row since 2022, other than Yuki Tsunoda.
Wow.
Yuki has qualified in the top 10, but why are we not hearing about that?
Hmm.
Now, I don't expect you to have the answers for that,
I was
but
gonna
to
say
me,
conspiracy.
I think it's just Christian Horner doesn't like Yuki Tsunoda, and I think it's unfair. He's
Yep.
qualified in the top 10 three times. That means he's made it through all three phases of qualifying, and three times in a row. I'm sorry, three times in a row. Three of the four races he's been a part of Red Bull, he's qualified in the
Right.
top 10. That hasn't happened since 2019 or 2022,
Yeah.
when Checo was a good race car driver. And we're not hearing about that, but we hear from Red Bull, oh, we're very happy with how Checo Perez is doing or how Liam Lawson's doing. And I'm like, man, I just feel bad for Yuki because we already
He's
know
not getting the same praise,
he's not getting the same praise and he's not going to be there
even though
next year.
he's doing better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that.
So it bothers me. Um, the other thing that I would love to talk about is Haas. They're my other kind of team that I like to root for because I'm an American and I like rooting for an American team. And it seems like every time one of their cars does well, the other one does poorly. Esteban Ocon qualified was a 10th or ninth, and Ollie Behrman qualified 20th, which is a side tangent. Ollie Behrman can never be just okay. He's like the with those three bears. It's always like I'm really good or I'm really crappy. It can
Yeah.
never just be just right. So
He's
he'll have
not
a
Goldilocks.
yeah, exactly. He's like I might qualify eighth or I might qualify 20th, but that's it. So I don't know. It's too bad because I'd like to see Haas do better, especially as an American team. Thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, yeah, I want Haas to do well because they're an American sponsored team. Um, Ollie Behrman didn't finish this race.
No, and he qualified
So
20th.
yeah.
20th. That
Well,
means
was he 20th though? Because Pierre Gasly started from the pit lane.
yeah, because he changed parts. No, for time on the road, he was the slowest.
Okay.
He was the slowest, which means Lance Stroll was better than Oliver Behrman.
Yeah, I got nothing.
All right, so moving on to the race. I mean, we kind of been blending the race and qualifying, but the race was you and I had differing opinions on this. You thought this was a great race, and I thought it was a ho hum race. So
I
why was it a good race?
I enjoyed the race. I felt like this was one of the first races in a while that it seemed that there was action happening. Um,
Okay.
like I really, I don't know. It seemed like there was more passing than I have seen in recent races. I don't know if it's because I was expecting there to be little to no passing on this track. And so the fact that it seemed like there was more made it more exciting. So it's like relatively exciting to what I expected, or if the race itself was more exciting than the other races. Um, I can't necessarily break that down, but I thought that, yeah, there was a lot of action. I was so excited when Kimmy was in second.
Yeah, yeah, and I disagree. I didn't think it was a very good race. I think I haven't done the numbers or done any research, but just on gut, I would bet that there was less passing than normal, but it seemed like there was more because the leader got passed twice, being Max. So Max Verstappen started first, he got the hold shot, and then um, Oscar passed him, and then Lando passed him. Right?
Hmm.
Oscar passed him on his first. He tried to pass him the conventional way, which I thought was awesome, going into turn 6 and 7, where he was going to try and get him the inside line, and Max did fought, fought that pass very legally. There's no controversy there.
Right.
Um, and the thing that I thought was so brilliant was Oscar Piastri then on the same lap in an area not known for passing chose to pass Max on the outside.
Hmm.
Now Oscar's the leader. Max is in second place. Fast forward a couple laps, Lando Norris sees how his own teammate passed Max, and then turn 6 and 7, I'm going to pass him on the inside. Max blocked it again legally. So Lando has to wait another lap. I'm going to pass him on the inside. Max blocked it again legally.
Right.
This is the theme. I don't think Lando. And look, I've been a Lando fan. I announced at the beginning of last year, before we knew McLaren was dominant, that Lando was my guy.
That is true.
I don't think he has it.
I
I
think,
think the Sports Center and all those they call it the hymns. I don't think Lando is him. I think
yeah,
Lando is not
I
him.
don't think yeah, is it that he's like, I don't know if tentative is the right word, but he doesn't like get his elbows out like some of the
Yeah,
other drivers do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's if you think back to last year when Max got two penalties in one lap for defending against Lando. Like, and I'm
Right.
not suggesting that that's what he has to do, but Lando gets passed, and Lando's like, oh, okay, well, let's go kayak.
Kayaking
Um,
is fun.
but I just I want him to the great Brooklyn Dodger pitcher made a quote, obviously Brooklyn Dodgers, so in the 1950s about you have milkshake drinkers and you have beer drinkers, and you can tell what you have based on how they finish and how they want to win. And Lando is a milkshake drinker, and he needs to be a beer drinker. And Oscar
Hmm.
Piastri is a beer drinker. Max Verstappen's a beer drinker. Fernando Alonso is a beer drinker. Um, yeah.
That was such an American style like analogy.
Oh, well, I
And
did. I did Yankees and Red Sox, so I might as well
I
do
was
Brooklyn
just gonna
Dodgers too.
say, and we were talking about the good old American pastime of baseball. That's why we're American, Tifosi.
Yeah. Um, so as it turned out, to me, the race wasn't great. Oscar won, um, and yeah, I think you had mentioned your lasting memory was the Ferrari radio. So why don't we talk about that because I have a couple things I want to say as well. So go ahead.
I mean, just that I can tell Lewis is seeming irritable. He has been seeming irritable in races, right? But I don't know if this was the first time that he decided to speak up about it. And the way that he spoke up about it just came off as not very nice, first of all, right? Like,
Mm.
I get being frustrated and they only have moments, right? But yeah, to say like, do you want to take a tea break while you're at it? And oh, do you want me to let him pass too? Right? Like snarky. And I would even go so far as to say slightly unprofessional. Um, but entertaining.
Yeah, I in my notes I had written down, does this prove that Charles is number one? But realistically, I believe this proves that Ferrari doesn't know what the heck they're doing. Um, if we can believe the way the television broadcast was presented to us, the viewing public, then they should have made the decision to let Lewis Hamilton pass Charles Leclerc laps before. Lewis Hamilton clearly was faster, clearly had a tire
Yes.
advantage. And by the time they decided to let Lewis pass Charles,
It'd
or
been
give
like
the
three
order or
laps.
whatever. It had been 3 or 4 laps, and the advantage that Lewis Hamilton had on his softer tires was lost. So now Charles catches him again, and to me, it just shows that you're kind of bush league. You
I
now
think
that's a third baseball reference I've made, but yeah,
I think that they're having poor communication is what it seems like over the course of this season so far. Is that I don't know if it's because Lewis is new and so there's a different style, or I don't know exactly, but in general, it seemed like they didn't ask. They had told Lewis before they even asked Charles, right, about going around, and then I don't know. It just seemed
yeah,
messy. It seemed
yeah.
not well coordinated.
It seemed
It
very
was
amateur
awful.
hour.
Yes,
And to me, it makes me think that Charles is they publicly say that Lewis and Charles are equal. But to me, it kind of has proven that maybe Charles is number one.
well, and but I don't think that that is, even if he is, because he's like grandfathered in as having been part of Ferrari longer. I don't think that they have made that explicit even within the team.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is I don't know if they have. Publicly, they have said they're equal.
Right.
Behaviorally, they appear to favor Charles.
Yeah. I would
And
agree with
and
you, but I think it's unclear amongst the team as well, is what I'm saying.
perhaps, perhaps. Um, I Natalie did on this subject make a comment about how she doesn't feel bad for Lewis because Lewis chose to leave Mercedes, and I think that that is a very valid point. Lewis, we already talked about this. Lewis knocked on Ferrari's door.
Hmm.
Ferrari didn't recruit Lewis. Lewis left Mercedes of his own volition, and you could say forced Carlos Sainz out. Um, so if Lewis wants to complain, I get that I can understand the position of Lewis should come in as the number two, or he needs to take his lumps or whatever. And I'll make sure I bring that up with Natalie next time around because I'd love to hear her thoughts on it. But I do think that that is fair. I don't think he has a right to complain. He asked to join Ferrari. Ferrari's struggling, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you might as well grab an oar and start paddling.
Right.
Um, but on that note, we've talked for the last 2 or 3 podcasts about teams maybe start leaning, and I had called that last race was maybe the time to start thinking about sending it into to the 26 and the change of regulations. So do you think Ferrari should maybe start focusing on 2026? Do you think that they still have a fight? They have a win
I mean,
anything?
I think they still have an opportunity to be in this year's fight. So I think that they should get it together and
Yeah.
focus on finishing this year out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of thing. I would rather see them fighting for first place next year and settling for fourth place this year than fighting for second and third place this year and fighting for second and third place next year. So if they feel like they could do something to push them over the top, guarantee them first place either driver or constructor next year, I'd rather see that.
Yeah, I could see that. They just need to like all get in a room and have a little meet up and get it together. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not sure that that's how Formula One does conflict resolution, but yeah,
Maybe
okay.
not.
All right, we're running out of time, but I need to ask you. So, uh, the rumor reported by a couple news outlets is Jack Doohan is gone, Franco Colapinto is in. What do
That's
you think?
exciting to me. I have been wanting Franco Colapinto to be racing this year. I was so excited when we found out that it was him in Monza. And yeah, I hope that that is a true rumor.
Okay. Uh, what we do know for sure is the Alpine principal has resigned, and Flavio Briatore, who is either Albert Einstein or the spawn of Satan. It's one or the other. It's like that's all. That's all
I
it can be. Is now the team principal, who's a clear Colapinto fan. So we know Briatore's in. We don't know if Doohan is out. Um,
I would be sad for Jack Doohan, right? Like, but also there's only so many spots for Formula One drivers, and
yeah,
we
I just
want to
don't
be
feel like
seeing the best of the best.
I don't feel like he got a great shake. I don't. I'm not convinced that Colapinto is one of the 20 best drivers. He had a couple of good races with Williams, and that was great. And he was replacing Logan Sargent, who was definitely not one of the 20 best drivers in the world. So he didn't have shoes to fill, and so
That's
I don't
fair.
know. I feel bad. Also, Williams still owns Colapinto, so we'll have to see how that shakes out. We will definitely make sure to get Natalie's thoughts on this because any hard to pronounce Italian name, Natalie is sure to love.
Fair.
So she's going to love that Colapinto may be on the grid, and Flavio Briatore is confirmed on the grid as a team principal for Alpine.
Probably her new favorite principal.
Yeah, he will not be mine, but that is fine. It can be hers. Thank you for joining us today, though. I appreciate it. You pinch hit. I'm using a bunch of baseball analogies, so I appreciate you pinch hitting for us.
Yeah.
You know your stuff, and we're glad you're a part of the American Tifosi. Do you have any final thoughts?
Um, I want Kimmy Antonelli to win.
My final thoughts are Formula One fans, you better start watching Oscar Piastri because I believe we are watching a generational talent. Um, yeah, that'll do it for us. We are American Tifosi. Please hit that like and subscribe and smash the bell so you don't miss a thing or whatever it is that they say. Thanks, guys.
Ciao for now.
Bye.